Hello everyone, welcome back to the Cozy Corner. My name is Lee and this is my library. So grab a mug of something yummy and settle in for some talk of books. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different because it is a gray, gloomy day outside. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so we're in something comfy. We got second day curls going, minimal makeup, and I need to read some drama. By drama, I mean bad reviews of good books. This is a series I will hopefully be continuing with multiple genres of books, but today it is all about the classics. I mean, where else would we start? The classics, I think, are probably the most controversial of book reviews because you either love it or you hate it. I've never found an in-between. I compiled a list of 10 classic titles that I think would cause the most controversy among readers. I had a little help from book lists on websites. Then I went hunting for Amazon reviews. Amazon reviews, I think, are some of my favorite things. If you've never read the sugar-free Black Forest Gummy Bears reviews, I suggest you treat yourself. I'm a big fan of funny reviews. I loved when the Yelp review videos came out.
When the manager got on the phone, and I thanked him and let him know it was good, he said thank you and you're welcome. It seemed like he was in a rush. I don't think I'm going to eat there anymore. Because if the manager isn't nice, then what does that say about the business you're running? The people in it.
There's some good stuff. Let's get started and spill some tea on classic works of literature. Can't have tea, so I'm substituting for coffee. What everybody needs at 5:30 on a Friday. The first book on my list is Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. You may also know this book from its alternative title, Man of La Mancha. It is both a comedy and a tragedy, as well as a fantasy. You could throw that in there. If you've never read Don Quixote or seen the musical, it is about a man named Don Quixote who lives in the region of La Mancha in southern Spain. And fueled by the dreams he has gotten from all the books he has read, he decides to pick up his lance and sword and defend the helpless against the wicked and evil and battle dragons and monsters that he encounters along the way. I have 2 unread anonymous reviews that are sitting in front of me on my computer, which is right here. I have not read them. I'm going to read them in front of you for the first time. Here we go. I guess I just don't get it. Yes, I understand the book has a much broader meaning than the literal adventures of a deranged knight. In other words, exposing social customs as learned, trivial, and sometimes fragile when challenged. All this is accomplished through an out-of-period character. What I don't get is the humor everyone keeps talking about. I didn't find this book to be in the least bit amusing. In fact, I found it to be incredibly lame and borderline offensively stupid. Uh-oh. I don't care if the book is a witty social satire. There are plenty of other writers who accomplish this same goal by far less annoying and more clever means. Each adventure is tedious, repetitious, and inane, and there's over 500 pages of it. Offensively stupid. I kind of get what they mean by being repetitious. It is a really long book, and some of it could probably be shortened. It's kind of how I felt about Monte Cristo, which was good. But it did feel like parts dragged and could be shortened, and I read the abridged version, which was 600 pages long, instead of the 1,000 it actually is. For someone who didn't like classic language or found it tedious, that person has an incredible sense of sentence structure and vocabulary. Inane. Excellent use of that word. Here's the second one. Oh no, I already saw the first couple words. Okay. Yep, I read it. Boring? Yes. Boring beyond belief. It is also mundane, vapid, and worthless. Read Hemingway or Faulkner. Even the comic section of your local rag is better than this work of literally trash. Jeez. Obsessively stupid, literally trash. Yikes. Mundane, vapid, and worthless. Poor Don Quixote. The man gets berated enough in his own story, and then the reviews also do the same thing. Good thing he's fictional. The second book on my list is actually a book that I myself, who consider myself to be a classic enthusiast, also struggled to get through. It's Ulysses by James Joyce. Ulysses was a struggle. The pretext of this story is also a little hard to comprehend. So the story of Ulysses is basically a parallel of the story of Odysseus, Homer's hero in the epic poem The Odyssey, and previous characters from James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man parallel the characters in The Odyssey. So Stephen Dedalus, who is the main character in Portrait, parallels Odysseus, who is now Ulysses. Leopold and Molly Bloom, who are also in Portrait, become Penelope and Telemachus, and basically that story parallels what happens in the Odyssey and just sort of James Joyce's interpretation on life. So here are some reviews of Ulysses. I would have to say that I have easily read close to 1,000 books in my lifetime. Wow, good for you. I would also easily have to say that I have never read a book that was as incomprehensible as Ulysses. That tracks. I really do not believe that one has to have cliff notes or any type of helpers to read and understand a book. Yet I firmly believe that Ulysses should be accompanied by several texts explaining page by page what you just read. It was so disjointed and difficult to comprehend that I was beginning to question my sanity in even attempting to sift through it and find a plot. I would not recommend it to anyone, and I feel sorry for English majors who are forced to read it. I chose to read it and would not make that choice a second time. They understand the plight of an English major where we have to annotate and study books that we probably wouldn't pick up in our own free time. That is really good, though, about the fact that sometimes it feels tedious that we have to pick up something to help understand a book, but also there are important lessons to be learned from books that require the help of those things. So I don't necessarily dislike the fact of having to use commentaries or cliff notes or studies to help me understand what's going on in a book. That was a good review. At least they gave it a shot and chose to read it. Bravo to you. Also, bravo to that book total. I wonder how old you are. Okay, here's the next one. Yes, Ulysses, we are told, is a work of genius. Yes, it is multifaceted and pregnant with meaning. Ooh, I like that. True, it may even be a compendium of all Western culture since Homer. But let's be honest. Oh no. It's as fun as reading a telephone directory. That was a good one. Okay, oh, there's a sneaky third one in here. Perhaps the worst book I have ever read. Oh, it is a blasphemy that it ever was published. Oh my goodness. Its only function is to keep blinkered academics busy trying to wring another drop of meaning from a text already exhausted from analysis. A brief glance through it is enough to confirm that it is precisely the novel you would write if you wanted to become a celebrated author, but hated writing, hated readers, and wanted to punish academics. This monstrosity of hideous prose confirms that James Joyce has no style and certainly no class. The novel can rightly be blamed for being the originator of the misguided notion that the squalor and filth quotient of the story is directly proportional to its artistic merit. Oh. This monstrosity. James Joyce has no style and no class. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so good. I did not expect these to be as scathing as they are, and so well written. My goodness. Really loved that blinkered academics line. That was good. As a blinkered academic myself, I appreciate the shout out. Okay. Well, the first two have been great, and this next one I'm really excited for because it is probably the most controversial book I've got on this list. It has been banned from pretty much every school. It's a hot topic book. That is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. If you don't know the story of Lolita, it is about a man named Humbert who falls in love with a young girl whose name is Annabelle Lee. And Annabelle Lee dies from typhus very young. And basically the rest of the book is Humbert collecting and grooming these young girls, which he calls nymphets. And one of them, whose name is Dolores, also known as Lolita, is the one he particularly falls in love with. Their relationship is incredibly toxic, and the story just devolves from there. If any of you are Pretty Little Liars fans like me, you will know the significance of Vivian Darkbloom and its relationship to Vladimir Nabokov. It's a crucial plot point right there. Okay, here we go. Lolita, or The Confessions of a Murderer and Panty Sniffer, is the most famous novel of Vladimir Nabokov, one of the, inexplicably for me, sacred cows in 20th century literature. A masterpiece of the English language for some, a manual of pedophilia for others, or just a plain overrated novel for the rest. I think that's probably the one that makes the most sense. It fits pretty well into those three sections. I ended up throwing this book away. Didn't even DNF it, literally threw it away after reading about 5 chapters. If you enjoy reading the pedophilic ramblings of a perv, go for it. Yuck. And I'm a very open-minded person, but this book is just gross. I'm glad that you draw the line of pedophilia. Oh, this person has a numbered list. My favorite. Here we go. 1. I'm bored. 2. He uses too many allusions to other novels so that if you're not well read, this book makes no sense. 3. Most American readers are not fluent in French, so to have conversations or interjections in French with no translation is plain dumb. 4. Did I mention I was bored? 5. As with another reviewer, I agree. They use a lot of huge words that just slow a person down. And it's not for theatrics either. It's just huge words mid-sentence when describing something simple. Nothing in the sense of imagery is gained. 6. Also, to sum it up, it's a story about a pedophile. Whether you interpret it as something else or not is up to you, but that's the main plot for you. I would not recommend this book to any of my friends. 3 down, 7 to go. I'm already tired and my tummy hurts. Number 4 is another one that has been banned from schools. That would be The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Basically, this book is Mark Twain's condemnation of the institutionalized racism of the South, and it tells the story of a runaway boy and an escaped slave who ford the river, basically on a search for their own meaning of freedom and what that looks like. And it is heralded as probably one of the most classic works of literature of all time, at least for America. I think, at least in today's world, the content is important, and I wish it was something that was more regularly read in schools, but it is what it is. Okay. Oh no. Whatever you do, do not read this book. It's long, it's really hard to read, and the story just flat out sucks. A lot of people say that this book is packed with meaning, but it's not, in all capital letters. Mark Twain wrote a stupid story about a boy and a slave floating down the Mississippi. That sounds really interesting. Yeah, right. This book is a big waste of time. It should be outlawed from our schools. Because because Twain likes to use the N-word a lot. Okay. This book, in my opinion, should get the Turkey of the Century Award. A big book BBQ should be devoted to all the copies in print. I did forget that that was actually part of the story, was the use of language, which I think is part of the reason why it was banned from schools. I think the same thing happened to Kill a Mockingbird, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't really like this book because, let's face it, it needs some more spice. Throughout the whole book, it was just so plain and dull. Maybe this book appealed to other people hundreds of years ago, but not now. I mean, I think the content is incredibly relevant for today's world. It needs more spice. Maybe. Oh, I feel bad that so many people find these books dull. Oh, okay. I, like many others, was told to read this book. I can say that this book bored me to death. This book can be written in 50 pages, not 200. That's a whole waste of 150. At one point, maybe it was a great book. Oh, I can't say that word. But beep now is a waste of time. And why read the book when the movie is out? Oh no! Oh, we got the first of the movies here. Why read the book? Oh, read the book, please. Next on my list is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I love this book. I think it's probably one of my favorite classic works of literature. I love F. Scott Fitzgerald. I have seen the movie The Great Gatsby, both versions. If you've never read The Great Gatsby, it is the story of a man named Nick Carraway, who is a New York journalist who leaves the city in search of the American dream, and he settles in an area where he meets the Gatsby family, namely Jay Gatsby, who owns this huge house, as well as his, I think, sister or cousin? I can't remember. Hang on. It is his cousin. I didn't think it was his sister. Daisy, and her husband Tom, who's not a nice guy. And basically, Nick is thrown into their life and learns about the wealthy and all of their deceits and scandals. I really liked it. I can also see how it can be challenging for some people. So here are the reviews for The Great Gatsby. Oh, I was forced to read this book for school. What a pick for school. I hated every page of this book. It was boring and had no point. Even though it is apparently one of the greatest American novels from the 20s, it is bad. I don't like any of the characters. They should all be destroyed because they are all awful people who would rather party than actually face their lives. What's so different from today? I don't think that teachers should force students to read it just because it happens to be by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Big whoop. Why else would you be forced to read it? Attention students, I would like to teach you all how to throw a 20s cocktail party. That's why we're reading The Great Gatsby. No, when you're in an English class, you're gonna learn about authors and classic literature. To be fair, it did also inspire a lot of 20s cocktail parties. Why does everyone want to throw a New Year's party that's 20s based? That's what I would like to know. The only things that happened in this book happened in the last 50 pages. Okay, I'll grant you that. The climax does happen a little late in the book. It's boring, and the only reason I read it is because it was an English assignment. The plot was dreary, and I did not like it. Dreary. I love that word. Oh man. English teachers, I feel you. I would have loved reading that in high school. The climax does happen a little late. It does get juicy near the end, but I don't know if it's boring all the way through. Okay, I'm gonna stop arguing with these people's opinions. Oh no! Excellent substitute for Valium. The most artificially inflated phenomenon since the 1929 stock market, and likewise this book seems like a worthy instigator of a Great Depression. I have to, oh, excellent, oh man, excellent substitute for Valium. Those two sentences just... Poor F. Scott Fitzgerald. The instigator of a Great Depression. Although to be fair, Jay Gatsby is a little bit depressed. I mean, with all the things we know about mental health today, I think we would be very quick to self-diagnose Jay Gatsby. Okay, we are halfway through. Oh man, I'm having a great time. The next book on my list is 1984 by George Orwell. So it is kind of a sci-fi fantasy story if you've never read it. Basically, a man named Winston Smith loses his government job, which was to rewrite history to paint the world's leaders in a better light. And he has love affairs with a woman named Julia, I think is her name. But the government is keeping tabs on him because in this society, there is something called Big Brother, which means the government is watching you through your TV, through your electronics. You're never alone. The government is always watching, or Big Brother is always watching you. Here are 1984 reviews. While embarking on this classic, don't expect to find yourself absorbed in a magnificent tale. It is a redundant novel with unnecessary tangents and pages of contradicting philosophy. And must we really keep reading in full detail the horror and disgust of Winston's varicose veins. Oh, I forgot about those. George Orwell is a little bit convoluted, I will give him that. Him and H.G. Wells could have a good conversation. Okay, here's another one. I hated this book. That's the first hate I've seen in these reviews. I hated having reasonably high expectations for a so-called classic, only to have to suffer through a drab chain of non sequitur events, thoroughly lacking any explanations at all. Oh. Okay, that person's touching on actually what a lot of people have for classics, where people hype it up so much and then you read it and either you can't understand it or you don't connect with the content. Oh, that's an actual feeling. That got me right here. I will say it is sometimes a little non sequitur, but it's George Orwell. The man writes episodically. At first, I did like the book. Oh, good. Then it just started to suck. Right around the time when Winston was getting sexually involved with his girlfriend. I hated the book so much that I forgot her name. The first 100 pages or so I liked. Then it just got really boring. So I highly recommend that you do not read this book. And please, for the love of God, don't read that Brave New World by Huxley. No! I love Brave New World. It is twice as worse as 1984. What does that have to do with any of this? Oh, to put it bluntly, don't read any George Orwell. You're just wasting your time. What do you want? Both of them are creepy. They write creepy stuff. Oh, that poor Julia. It was so bad that I forgot his girlfriend's name. I also don't want to be this person, but you used every wrong form of your in that review. I'm just saying. Okay, number 7. I have never read. I will freely admit that I have not read this one. It is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. This basically surrounds the plot of the War of 1812, if you've never read this. I would try to sum it up, but there are so many moving parts and characters that it's almost impossible. Basically, Napoleon invades Russia, and all the other characters are living life through that moment in time. It's dramatic. There's plot, there's treason, there's murder, there's conspiracy, romance. There's pretty much everything in there, but the plot is too convoluted to summarize, which I think is probably going to be revealed in the reviews that I read. So, I read the entire thing in about a week or 10 days. Truly a marathon. Okay, at least that person was able to read it relatively quickly. I was left highly disappointed and utterly disgusted with the entire experience. As far as I am concerned, it is an extremely overrated It is an extremely overrated behemoth with few redeeming qualities. Having read many of the sickly gushing reviews here, I can only surmise that either I had a horrible translation, or that these folks are so teed off at having wasted their time that they want you to do the same. Mutual misery. I do sometimes wonder if the translation does damage the story, because I know that in languages there are just some things, the phrasing and the beauty of the language does not translate. And when we force it into the framework of English, we lose some of that beauty. So I do sometimes wonder if that's the case, and I feel like he should read a different translation just to give it a chance, maybe? I don't know. The next one's only 3 sentences. Oh, I read this book from cover to cover and absolutely hated it. It is dry and it is bland. I do not recommend it to anyone. The end. Alright. Didn't even go deep, just in general. Don't like it. Oh, this is sad. This type of literature is not going to hold an audience anymore. So many people have the opportunity to live interesting lives nowadays. Why would they stop to read a novel of this length about a bunch of fictional characters when they could be spending time actually living their own lives? It was a real drag. I don't know if I agree with that review. I kind of agree with that it probably won't hold an audience anymore, mostly because people's attention spans have shrunk considerably in the age of social media, but I don't know. I think that's part of the reason why I love reading books, is that I can read about interesting lives of other people. It's how we learn history. I would maybe ask them that question. Well, what other books do you read? Isn't that the exact thing that you're doing, putting your life on hold to read about someone else's? Just a question, sir. Or ma'am, I don't know who wrote this. Next on my list is a little bit of a niche one, but I wanted to throw an abstract one out there just to see what I could find. It is In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. I've only ever read excerpts. But basically it follows the life of a young boy in 19th century, early 20th century aristocratic France, and it's all about finding love and the experiences of childhood and adulthood, and basically all reflecting on the lack of meaning in the world. It's very meta. I wanted to see what people thought of this niche book, or books, because there's 6 of them. How can any work be so dreary and unpoetic and at once so imprecise and unanalytical? The answer? Read Proust. I kind of agree with it. Oh no, the next one's written literally in all capitals, the entire thing. This is the most boring book I have ever read. If you write 3,000 pages of a book, you have to expect some dissent. Homie boy Proust. Two fat bosses in the house dissing each other, shooting off their mouths. It didn't even make sense. Was he writing a rap song? Oh, that was good. That made no sense. But he's right. If you write 3,000 pages, they can't all be good, so you should expect some dissing, homie boy. Homie boy Proust. Oh, I'm never gonna call him anything else now. Homie boy Proust. 2 more left. Oh, thank goodness, we're almost done. So the 9th book on my list is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. It follows the extramarital affair between Anna Karenina and Captain Alexei. The whole thing basically scandalizes St. Petersburg and the social circles in that city and makes them flee to Italy, and it's about their terrible marriages to other people. There is some trigger suicide in there, as well as a little bit of sexual abuse, so read it with that warning in mind. But it's a very dark, dramatic, romantic tryst, and I really enjoyed it. I have seen both movies, so I'm excited to see what people thought. This is really the first romance book that I think is on my list, so let's see what people said. Oh, it's another list. Oh no. How can anybody like this book? Whoever said this is the best classic ever written must be truly brain dead. What could be enjoyable about a book that primarily consists of a guide on A. How to cut grass, B. How to hunt bear, and C. How to abandon your own kid for a gigolo? If I wanted all that stuff, I would have read the Farmer's Almanac. What part of the Farmer's Almanac tells you how to leave your kid for a gigolo? Partially due to the century gap, I found it impossible to relate to any of the characters. Okay, well, yeah, the worlds are different. However, it runs much deeper than that. I actually found it impossible to like or even dislike any character in the story. Everyone is quite boring, one-dimensional, and stale. The result is an 800-page masterpiece about characters that are impossible to care about. So if you see Anna for $5 at your neighbor's garage sale, go ahead and buy it. Hollow it out and stash a handgun in there. Leave it next to your toilet if you have unwanted guests. Put it in your fireplace and have a nice glass of vodka. Just don't read it. You've been warned. Oh my goodness. Leave it in your toilet if you have unwanted guests. Poor Anna. The most boring book I have ever laid eyes on. Read the other 1-star reviews. There is no need for me to repeat everything that others have said. I do not know how this book became a classic. It belongs in the circular file in the bookshelf. That's like the worst library insult you could ever give a book. On the circular file? No! That one makes me sad. I really did love Anna Karenina. Oh well, at least Jude Law is cute. We've made it to the end. The final book on my list of classics with bad reviews, Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. Basically, it follows the story of a sort of unlikely romance between a doctor whose name is Charles Bovary and the young girl he marries whose name is Emma. It does not work. Charles is very dull and unambitious, and Emma is a full-of-life girl. She was raised on the farm. She's got good roots, but she was also raised in a convent, so she's got good morals. And basically it's sort of the tragic end of that relationship. It is a tragedy. There is a little bit of romance, but it's mostly just about the struggle of being stuck in a situation that you can't escape. I really liked it, but it was one of those books that I don't know if I would ever read again because it is a little bit on the dark side. So I picked it because I think it would probably be content-wise what not a lot of people expected, and B, something that they would never read again or recommend to anybody. So let's read the reviews of this one. Dear Lord, this book was awful. One of the very few novels that I have been unable to finish or even indeed get halfway. It was just too boring. Before throwing it in the charity bin, I skimmed through the rest to see if anything happened that I would be interested in. Nope. I had to read this awful piece of classic lit in college. You keep reading it, hoping, waiting for it to get good. It never does. I had similar feelings when I read Great Expectations. Never turns the corner. I don't know how to answer to the boring part because I don't know what makes it ultimately boring for them, whether it's the language or the content or the mood or theme. Oh, so that's the end of the list. I wanted to start this series of videos called Book Horror Stories or Bad Reviews of Good Books because I think in the literary sphere we have too many people who judge others for the books that they read. They become snobby or snooty or look down their nose at people who didn't pick up a classic work of literature or a good book, let alone attempt to read it. And I don't ever want this space, my cultivated cozy corner safe space, to become a place where people feel that way, where like they can't join in on the conversation because they haven't read the books that I've read. I want everyone to know that what you enjoy about books is as personal to you as your taste buds. So I will never hear, and I would encourage people never hear, to look down on someone because they thoroughly enjoyed 50 Shades of Grey, or if Twilight was their jam in high school. Great. If all you ever read are the classics, that's perfectly fine. Or if you love romance or thrillers or whatever. I don't ever want this to be a place where people feel judged because they couldn't get into a style of book. And so, while I did share my own opinion on a few of the books and maybe disagreed with some of the opinions read, I still respect those people. Classics are challenging and hard, and as someone who enjoys them and has studied them at length, I know that even if you are equipped with the right tools, they can still sometimes be inaccessible. So if you have an opinion about any of these books or any of the other books that I'm going to mention in the next few videos in this series, please share them with me. Let me know what you think. I want to know. I want to have conversations. What you liked, what you didn't like. Maybe we can change your mind. Maybe you can change my mind. Who knows? But like I say in the description of every video, this is a safe space for any and all talk of books. And while I love a good giggle, and I love reading the incredibly colorful language that people use to describe books, I want people to feel free to do that. So, we have come to the end of another video. If you want, go check me out on Instagram. You can find all that information down below. You can find all the books mentioned here and the authors down below. I've got a few exciting things coming up in October, including a very special Halloween hour read along with me. I'm really excited for that one. I'm going to be reading a really cool book. I also do every other week with weekly reading vlogs, so check out the last one if you haven't seen that. See how I'm doing on my challenges that I set for myself. What else can I say? Oh, duh. Please like this video and subscribe to Lee's Library. It does help me out and let me know what you guys want to see. For now, thank you for coming back and enjoying another video about books. A huge thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me along the way. I can't wait to see what's on the next page. Cheers.